Chuke's 10mm extravaganza. Welcome once again to Chuke's 10mm extravaganza. Well, as stated, I put together a list of every 10mm ever made. Obviously, that would be impossible because I would have to go through every custom 1911 10mm ever made, and some of those I grouped together. But I do feel like I have a pretty good list of most of the production 10mm and a few kind of special ones that I wanted to mention that were pretty outstanding. So I have 41 10mm, and obviously I grouped a lot of them together. Obviously there's only a few platforms. There's the striker fired, there's a huge number of 1911s in here, and then there's some interesting, I did add a couple sub guns and kind of, you know, the pistol with braces category. Added a few of those, but mostly they're pistols, and some of them are their own animal, but I think it's a pretty comprehensive list. Like I said, some of them are grouped together. So I started from my least liked, number 41, all the way to what I think is the top ranked 10mm at the top, number 1. Now obviously this is subjective. People are gonna give me a lot of grief over some of these, and I will say when I start about 24 and up, they're a lot closer. The gap is not as big as, oh, this one's way better than that one. They're all good, I feel, but they just keep getting better and better. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start at the very bottom, number 41. This makes me kind of sad because even though I have ranked this as the worst 10mm, I am planning on getting one because it does look fun. The Point Carbine in 10mm. It's made of cheap plastic polymer. It's extremely heavy, and it's got a very low round count for a carbine. I think that the mag holds less than 10, I want to say, like 8 or 9 rounds. Anyways, had a buddy that had one. I want to fire one. It looks like just a fun, it wouldn't even be a camp or a truck gun, just a fun gun to mess around with. And from what I've heard, they are reliable. So it's a blowback, big plasticky heavy carbine, the Point Carbine 10mm. Number 40, I'm grouping a whole lot of stuff together. So I'm gonna say I'm ranking 40 10mm 1911s made in Turkey. I don't necessarily care for Turkish made guns. I have used some of the shotguns before because they were affordable, but I don't really like the country of Turkey just because of their politics, and I don't care for the way they make their guns. I think Gersons are made in Turkey, but I could be wrong about that. Let me know. But I do know that they do make some 1911. So any 1911 made in Turkey, I'm rating as number 40, and that groups a lot together, so I apologize for that. Number 39, 10mm 1911s made in Philippines, so your Armscor Rock Island ones. Unfortunately, I had to rate those as 39. They are way better than Turkish made 1911, so maybe this isn't fair. And I do want to say, I don't know if you've seen any of those documentaries about the guys that live on the islands in the Philippines that make unmarked 1911s by hand, every part. One of those would be at the very top. Like I would die for one of those, of course. I'm talking about production 1911s made in Philippines. I'm not as big on. So, and I wish I wouldn't have ranked that so low because they are way better than a Turkish-made 1911. I'd buy one from the Philippines any day. They do take pride in their workmanship, but unfortunately I had to rank that as number 39. Number 38, Derringers chambered in 10mm. I would rather have a Derringer and something else. So we're talking about American Derringer, Bond Arms, which I really like the company Bond Arms, but unfortunately, I don't think it's that practical, and I'm not as interested in a Derringer chambered in 10 millimeter, so I'm ranking that as number 38. 37 is kind of an interesting one, the Zastava P10 10 millimeter. It's based on the Tokarev line. It is interesting. I wouldn't mind one just to mess around with, but it's cheaply made, and I forgot what country it's made in, if it's Slovakia or something like that. But anyways, it's the Tokarev platform, so not high on my list. I'm putting that as 37. Kind of interesting though. 36, the Ordinance Elite Hunter long slide 1911 10 millimeter. You know, some people really like that. I don't really care for Para 1911s. They are on the cheaper budget side of 1911s, so it's not going to make it very high on my list. I'm ranking that as number 36. And like I said, this is subjective. A lot of people aren't going to like the way I rank this, so I apologize. Number 35, 10 millimeter AR-15 variants. I'm just not into the AR-15s chambered in 10 millimeter. Some of them I might like if I had one that was in flat dark earth that had every single accessory you could think of, maybe an Aero Precision build or something, I might like it then. But obviously this groups a lot of brands. There's a million different brands, or not a million, but there's a lot of brands where you could build your own 10 millimeter AR-15 platform, but it just doesn't appeal to me that much. If there was a very high-end one in flat dark earth, I would probably be interested and I would bump it up higher, but otherwise I'm not that interested. It's ranked as 35. This one's going to piss people off, so I apologize for this. I know there's a wide range of variants. Number 34, Kimber 1911s, chambered in 10 millimeter, and there's a lot more than I can name here. The Eclipse Custom 2, the Rapide, the Super Jaguar. Some of these could be very high 1911s and might make my top 10, but the quality control of Kimber over the last 10 years, in my opinion, has gone down in the dumps. There's a lot of FUDs with 45 ACP 1911s that are jam-o-matics. They just jam every shot. 2012-ish, they were pretty hot. Like the Kimbers made back then were of high quality and worth that top dollar they pay. I will admit some of the 10 millimeter 1911, kind of the long slide ones and the custom ones, they got a high end price and some of them look very nice. I'm just not interested in buying one with the low capacity and some of the problems Kimber has had. So like I said, that's going to piss some people off. Some people would place that in the top 10 or 5. And I can understand that, but for me personally, not a Kimber guy for 1911s. I love their rifles. If we were talking about custom mountain rifles, it'd be in the top 2. I love Kimber, my Kimber Mountain Ascent. So number 34 for Kimber 1911s. I apologize for that. Number 33, the Remington R1 10 millimeter Hunter RS. I had a R1 in 45 ACP. It was okay. There were several things I didn't like about it, mainly the finish. I took it out fishing in light rain and just my sweat made these giant flash rust pits all over the frame. It was horrible. I just don't care for the Remington R1. They do have some sharp looking offerings, so I'm sure this is subjective. So I apologize for that. Just not a Remington R1 guy. 32, this one is definitely going to piss people off. It's so low. Springfield TRP Operator. It's more of an expensive 1911. It just doesn't appeal to me that much. I just would never buy money for what they charge for a Springfield TRP Operator 1911. I'm sorry, in 10 millimeter. So that's number 32. Number 31, the SIG 1911 Tac Ops. It does look pretty cool, but I'm just not into SIG 1911s. I have rated the P220, Legion, and Hunter much higher. I'm just not really into SIG 1911s, so I apologize for that. Number 30 is the EAA Tanfoglio Witness in polymer. Now the steel Witness I've ranked very high. It's in the top 10, as you'll see, but I just don't see the appeal of a polymer EAA Witness. They have more of a budget 10 millimeter. Some people might really like them for weight. It just does not appeal to me. I would never buy one, so I rank that number 30. Number 29 is this kind of a sub-gun, whatever, brace pistol category, the Kriss Vector SDP Gen II Enhanced. Now, if someone was to give me one, I would probably have a lot of fun with it, but I would never go out and buy one. I've heard they had issues with their mags. I've also heard some people really like them, so I'm not interested in the Kriss Vector, so it's 29. They do look cool. Looks like a Space Force gun though. 28 is Rock River 1911s. They do have some tactical double stack offerings, and I believe they're American made, so, but I'm not that interested in them. I thought about buying one, but probably won't, so it's ranked number 28. 27, this might piss some people off, 10 millimeter revolvers. I've grouped a whole bunch together, Ruger, Smith, I had the Birdie Cattleman. There's some single action ones. You can get a Ruger Blackhawk in 10 millimeter. I just don't think they're that practical. If I'm going to get a revolver, I would rather have it in 44 Magnum than 10 millimeter. Some upsides to it would be cheaper practice shooting for a revolver, because a 10 millimeter box of 10 millimeter is cheaper than a 44 Magnum. You're going to get it shooting more. But I just don't like auto cartridges in revolvers. I would always choose even a 45 long Colt, a 41 Magnum, a 44 Magnum. I would always choose that over 10 millimeter. The only exception I would make is there is a rare Korth 10 millimeter revolver that would probably make my top 10. I would love one of those because I love Korth, and it's a very rare revolver. So, but otherwise, not really interested in 10 millimeter revolvers. That's number 27. Number 26, this will probably piss some people off, the Ruger SR 1911 10 millimeter. People really like this. It's a fan favorite. The people who've had them have just told me they're really reliable. People are always looking for them. Here in Alaska, it's a popular 1911. I'm just not a Ruger 1911 guy. It does not appeal to me personally, so I'm going to put it as 26. 25 is just an interesting gun. I listed it. The Gran Power P40 10 millimeter. This one is the Slovakian made, so the Zastava is not made in Slovakia. It's just an interesting design. You know, it's a cheaper 10 millimeter. I think it would be fun. So I listed it at 25. Sue me. 24. And this is where 24 and up, I think they're all good options. So just because I listed this as 24 doesn't mean it's awful 9 millimeter. These ones were harder for me to rank. The SIG P220 Hunter or Legion. It doesn't have a lot of capacity, which probably would bar me from buying one, but I reviewed the Hunter. I've had a P220 and 45 ACP. Awesome gun. The mags need some work, but I am a fan of the P220, and it's something SIG already has. They haven't come out with their P320 in 10 millimeter yet. That could be on this list, but it's not out yet to the public. They say it's out, but I haven't been able to order one yet. P220, I like it. The Hunter, I'd probably prefer the Legion. I think it's a good option. I'm putting it as number 24. Number 23, this is grouping a few together. I think I missed one. The Smith & Wesson 1006 or 1076. These are older 10 millimeters. They're iconic. They got that solid steel Smith & Wesson looking frame that I like. I think they had some problems. Of course, they're older gun from like the 80s or something. I would like to have one just for my collection. The people that collect them really love them. I think there's a 1066 or something too. But anyways, I'm kind of grouping those 80s semi-auto 10 millimeter Smith & Wessons together. They all steel frames. 1006 or 1076, I would like one. So they're upper on my list. That's 23. 22, Colt Delta Elite. Some people would put that in their top 5. I apologize for that. I would like one. I've always wanted one. It's been a staple of 10 millimeters. It's helped kind of bring the 10 millimeter up for several decades. There have been some that had issues, but I think it's a pretty sharp looking 10 millimeter. It's expensive, but I wouldn't mind a Colt Delta Elite. It's just a classic, iconic 10 millimeter. 21 is a rare gun, the Noveske PDW Space Invader 10 millimeter. I just saw some mentions of this and I looked it up on the internet. I don't think you can get one right now, or if you can, it's really hard to, but it's just a cool Space Force looking gun, and I would love to have a PDW Space Invader 10 millimeter. Number 20, the B&T APC-10. This is kind of in the AR-15 category, but it stands alone because the B&T are competition guns, and it just looks like a sharp little 10 millimeter braced pistol or subgun. I don't know what you would call it, but it looks pretty sharp. 19, these are getting pretty high. These are all guns I want. CMMG Banshee in 10 millimeter. I almost tried to get a flat dark earth Banshee. CMMG are really reliable, they run great, and the Banshees look really nice. This is like a semi-auto subgun I'd like for camp or a truck, but the Banshees are nice, I want one. 18 is grouping hundreds of different brands together. Custom or high-end 10 millimeters that I'm not familiar with. Nighthawks, I would love a Nighthawk. A Les Baer, Ivor Johnson, Federal Ordnance, Peter Stahl, and on and on and on. I've listed some really nice, kind of the bigger production 1911s. There's a million like custom maker, just one guy that uses his name, 1911, and they chamber them in 10 millimeter. That made higher on my list 18 because those are prized possessions. I would love one of those. I'm just not familiar with every single 1911 brand. So I probably just grouped 150 different brands together in number 18. So I apologize if that irks some people. Number 17 is something I would love, a Wilson Combat CQB 10 millimeter. Of course, Wilson Combat has made other lines in 10 millimeter, so I'm just going to say Wilson Combat 1911s. I love their guns. They're very high-end 1911s. They're precision. They're reliable. I would love one, but it's not as high on my list, but it's something I would really like. Number 17. Number 16, an Ed Brown 10 millimeter. Another high-quality 10 millimeter. Expensive. He makes good 10 millimeters. He's got a whole bunch of lines of them, different models. It's number 16. Number 15 is very similar. Again, I apologize for this. Dan Wesson Elite Series Fury 10 millimeter. That made it pretty high because that's a sharp looking 10 millimeter 1911. Of course, Dan Wesson makes a whole bunch of other lines, so I am grouping all of the Dan Wessons together, but he made it pretty high in my list. That's number 15. Number 14, this is going to throw some of you guys off. I bet you didn't expect this. Thompson Center Arms Contender in 10 millimeter, any size barrel you want, 10 inch, 14 inch, super light. You could take it out hunting and get crazy velocity with a 14 inch barrel, and they're super light. I got a buddy that's got Thompson Center, and he's got the Contender and whatever the rifle one is, and he's got 1,000,000 barrels for them. They're super lightweight. I think that as far as 10 millimeter goes, that's going to be high on the list because you can get whatever barrel you want for it, and you're actually going to get super powerful ballistic, especially if you hunt with some Underwood or something. So that's number 14, Thompson Center. I bet you didn't expect that. Number 13, kind of a staccato STI Nitro 10 and the Tactical DS 2011. So they're the double stacked 2011 based on the 1911 platform, but of course they're double stacked, and it's STI. I think they made most of their 1911s before they became staccato, but that made it high on my list, 13, because those are sweet. I would love one of those. Number 12 is a very rare 1911, and that's the Thompson SMG model 1928 limited FBI model. So like a Tommy gun, they only made a few for the FBI in 1928, I assume, but it's very rare. And of course I would want a Tommy gun in 10 millimeter. That's number 12. So now we're getting close. We're getting close to my top 10. These are the nice ones. 11, really this would be number 1 if you ask me, but it's number 11 because it's so rare. The HK MP5 10. So an MP5 in 10 millimeter, they made a few for the FBI. It was really rare. You can also, I'm an idiot for not ordering the HK parts kit in the 10 millimeter MP5 when it was out. Now you can't find them. There are also several clones, 2 different companies I know of that make these MP5 clones in 10 millimeter. Absolutely amazing. That's number 11. I would love one of those. Number 10, I haven't shot. I don't know a lot about, but it's pretty sweet. The FK BRNO in their own caliber, but they also have the 10 millimeter barrels. So it's high on my list. It's very expensive, but number 10, I would love an FK BRNO or BRNO 10 millimeter. All right, now we're getting into the nice ones. Number 9, a Bren Ten, Miami Vice 10 millimeter. You know, whatever, the guy from Miami Vice carried this in the shoulder holster. It's based on a CZ75. It's iconic. Yes, they had some problems, but people collect these. If you could find a Bren Ten, that would be awesome. I probably wouldn't shoot Underwood out of mine, but I would love a Bren Ten. Very cool 10 millimeter. It's in my top 10. I don't care what anybody says. That's a collector's item, and it's iconic. It helped kind of start the whole 10 millimeter. Number 8, this might surprise people. Tanfoglio Steel Witness, multiple sizes, multiple different models. This is significant. I'm putting a 10 mil Tanfoglio clone CZ75, made in Italy though, over all the, like Ed Brown, or some of you would think I'm crazy, but they just made so many of them. They're really reliable. You can tweak them. They're precision Italian-made firearms. I've had 3 of them. I finally got another one. Long Windy Road did a video of it. I'll put that up here. My video will come out in a couple weeks. I simply love the Tanfoglio. There's so many of them out there, and I'm going to have to say it's number 8 because I think it's a reliable 10 millimeter. It's a practical 10 millimeter. If you can even find one, get one. They're very popular up here in Alaska. I'm putting Tanfoglio Steel Witness at number 8. And what do you know? Number 7, the Tanfoglio Steel Witness Elite Match. Now, they've made several versions, a whole bunch of versions of the Elite Match. It's the same Steel Witness, but it's the Elite Match version. It's got the match barrel. They, you know, hand fit all the parts. It's an expensive 10 millimeter pistol, and I had one once. I wish I would have never traded it. A very fine 10 millimeter. I think it's nice enough that I put it as number 7, even above a Wilson Combat. That's significant, guys. That shows you how much I like the Tanfoglios. I would rather have a Steel Witness Elite Match over a Wilson Combat, even though the Wilson Combat is more expensive. That tells you something. Those Tanfoglios are nice. Number 6, Springfield XDM old models, the original XDM that they came out with a few years ago. This is, you know, branching a few of them together, the 3 different sizes. They're just reliable, good 10 millimeters. That's going to be number 6. You know, they've even, the older ones, they have plates for a red dot optic, really good trigger. That's significant. I like them. Number 5, the Springfield Elite 4.5 OSP 10 millimeter that just came out. It's like the Elite Compact I had, but 4.5 inch barrel. I don't think you can get better than the Meta trigger. All the features you have on it. You can put a red dot on it. That's number 5, guys. I think that's a solid 10 millimeter. Number 4, surprise, surprise, Springfield XDM Elite 3.8 Compact OSP. This could easily be number 1, guys, and maybe in a few years it will be number 1. It could be number 1. I mean, it's almost tied with my number 1. I simply love that. You can carry it. It's the size of a Glock 19. It's got a red dot plate on it. The Meta trigger, probably the best 10 millimeter trigger I've ever held besides some fancy 1911. It's number 4, but like I said, it's very close to number 1. And then the top 3. Number 3, Glock 40 MOS. This could be number 1 for some people because it's the only stock Glock that comes with a red dot plate. You can put a red dot on it. It's the long slide Glock 10mm. It's number 3. Number 2, big surprise, Glock 29, the compact version of the Glock. Just hard to beat. They make them in Gen 4s. They don't have Gen 5s yet. If the Gen 5 would come out, then it probably wouldn't change. These would still be on top. Number 1, drum roll please, top 10mm ever made, Glock 20. It's iconic, 15+1 capacity, decent barrel length, not too long, not too short. I'm going to get mine probably cut for an RMR, then it'd be perfect. It's a little blocky. The Springfield XDM Elite is catching up with that, but I still trust a Glock 20 with my life out in the woods. I still think it's probably the best choice at this point for a reliable 10mm that I would choose. So that is my list of 41 10mm. Let the comments begin. Please tell me what I missed, what you would add to it. I know I was pretty vague and I rounded up a lot of things and bunched a lot of things together, but I think it's a pretty complete list of 10mm. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. And Glock on top, High Point on bottom. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. Please check out my website, chukesoutdoor.com. Check out my Amazon store. That's how I support the channel. And I appreciate you guys. And stay tuned for more videos. It's Chuke, your friend in the field.
My name is Chuke. I like to trade my guns just for fun, but now I have none. Oh, don't get shot by a bear, but I don't care. I got a 10mm. Chuke's Outdoor Adventures. Watch you all die.